Why are there so many shows starring Muppets and dozens of movies too? They said they'd watch everyone and they mean it. It's something that they've got to do. So now they've pledged you a lifelong commitment. The Muppets, Matthew and Sam.
Welcome to Kermitment, the podcast where two friends have vowed to watch all things Muppets. I'm Matthew Gatos.
And I'm Sam Schultz.
And this week we are checking in once again on Sesame Street. In our chronological journey, we are currently in the fall of 1985, which means we are here today to discuss Sesame Street Season 17. So to prepare for this, we watched a bunch of things that Sam will tell us about pretty soon. But before we get into that, we have another very special guest with us this week for another guest segment. He's a photographer, a puppet designer, and an Emmy Award winner. Let's welcome Richard Termine.
Hi guys, how you doing? Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Gosh, thank you for being here.
You have done so many things we will get into through the years, and you still, I believe, do a lot of things. So could you just let the listeners know everything you're up to at the moment?
Well, I'm currently, my main focus is performing arts photography and doing that as a freelancer. And so I continue to work freelance in the city for such clients as the New York Pops at Carnegie Hall, the Juilliard School, Lincoln Center, and for Muppets and Sesame Street photographing.
Was that something that started with the Muppets? Did you start that kind of photography with them, or had you done that already?
It did. What happened was my background, I was into and working with puppets since I was very young, and ultimately went to the University of Connecticut. I'm from Connecticut. And when I was in high school, I met Frank Ballard, who created and directed the program at the University of Connecticut, and went to, as an undergraduate, went and studied at the University of Connecticut as a general theater major, but certainly my focus and interest was in puppets, and then stayed and worked on my MFA with Frank Ballard at the University of Connecticut. And then after that, I taught for a while, a few years, and then had the opportunity to work in the workshop at Muppets as a puppet designer, builder, and eventually on Sesame Street was my main focus, and exhibit work and variety of productions. And while on set with Sesame, one of the things that we had was we would document what we built just for our archives. We had a camera on set, and I began to dabble in photography. One of my classmates, Jan Rosenthal Stafura, was working at the Muppet Workshop, and she was dabbling in photography also, and sort of got me taking photos. And when I was on Sesame, we were documenting what we built and all. And there was a still on-set still photographer. And I thought, that sounds like a wonderful freelance career. And I started to study more, and ultimately left the workshop after about 7 years. And Sesame Street became one of my first clients. And performance is what I knew and loved. And so I was shooting theater, and ultimately there was a New York Times photographer who came on set for an assignment one day, and I asked her, how do I make a connection with the New York Times? She gave me that contact number. This is about 20 years ago, and ultimately I began freelancing for the arts section of the New York Times, and photographing a lot of performance in New York.
That's so cool. You must see so much stuff.
I do indeed. It is quite remarkable, and I always talk about it being a very transformative experience for me, because I'm very in tune with the performers as I'm photographing, and working in sync with them. I like to say that I dance with them, that it's a partnership. So that energy and where and trying to anticipate the choreography of the dance or the staging. And so I'm often shooting dress rehearsals. So I'm able to move with them, parallel with them, not on the stage generally,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely it is a dance and a very transformative, invigorating dance.
Yeah.
I love it. It's very inspiring what I do, and I love it.
How did you make the transition from teaching to Muppet Workshop?
Well, that's an interesting. Originally, I'll be honest with you. When I was in college and I was doing puppet theater, and very much of the theater, I saw a lot of theater in New York and in Connecticut, and very much wanted to do and create puppet theater. At that same time, Muppets and Sesame Street were beginning, really taking a foothold in our cultural landscape, and I was very much of the mind that I was going to work in the theater and not in television, and so my first jobs out of college with my MFA were teaching and doing general theater for a couple of years, and my friend Jan, who graduated as an undergraduate
Mm-hmm.
in puppetry, went and worked in the workshop at Muppets and went to London to work on the Muppet Show when it was taping there. And there was and I was teaching for a couple of years, and I was feeling like I really needed some educational perspective on what I was teaching. And so there was a international Unima festival at the Kennedy Center and in Washington, D.C., and Jim Henson was the artistic director of that.
Mm.
Jan came in from, this was 1980, and came in from London for that. And I called her, I met her in Washington, and I said, could she get me an interview for Muppets? And she called to New York and set up an interview. So on the way back to Connecticut, I went for an interview in New York and got a job on a project with Muppets and gave up my teaching position. It was it was during the summer of 1980.
Mm-hmm.
So I ultimately went and worked for a couple of months in New York on this project. It was a Sesame Street Live that was being built.
Oh,
The
okay.
first one that was usually they were built in Minneapolis, and this was the first time that was going to be built in New York in the New York workshop. So I did that and started and took my first steps in terms of working in New York and at Muppets.
They did Muppets Live in Minneapolis too. It was right, didn't
Yes,
they?
yes, that's where it was. That's where it was.
Interesting.
And I forget the name of the company where the heads were still built there, but we built the bodies in New
Oh,
York
okay.
for this first one that I worked on.
Mm.
And then I was laid off, and then I
Mm.
taught again for a little bit, but then I went back and worked various departments within the company, and within a few months, Carol Lee Wilcox, who was one of the heads of the workshop, literally tapped me on the shoulder in the art department and said, "How would you like to join Sesame Street?"
Hmm.
And this was season 13. And so I began then to work at the in on Sesame Street in the workshop, and that was for about 7 years.
Being there in those Jim and Frank, Jerry Nelson, Richard Hunt days,
Exactly.
what was it like being on set with, you've come from college, you're interested in
Yes.
puppetry, and suddenly you're
Yes.
on set with Jim Henson?
Great. It was to watch them work was to witness that was truly the talent that was truly remarkable, and that's for all of the puppeteers. And I must say that Jim and Frank and the caliber of the level of the work, the sense of play, these were their characters, their alter
Mm.
egos, and to watch them take a script and not to in any way diminish what was written on the page, but they were able to take a script and then play with it, improvise, and then take it to another level.
Mm-hmm.
And to watch that was like watching Stan Laurel and Laurel and Hardy in terms of that kinship and that creativity. I think. And at the same time, I want to add that I've seen these characters now be handed off to another generation of performers and the caliber of that generation. I only wish that, I say this often, that I wish that Jim could have seen the wonderful characters, how his characters that he created, to see how they've gone to another level and what care they are in and how they live in the same what would you say, same framework, the truth to those characters and how they still continue to live on,
Yeah.
and the talent of the characters, the performers that are now performing those characters. Truly remarkable.
So you got to travel as well with Jim and the Muppets through the years. I know I've seen specifically from photos, I think from 1987, that you took in France.
Yes,
Uh,
exactly.
how often did you get to travel with them?
Well, I would travel occasionally. I traveled with Big Bird when he would do concerts.
Hmm.
One of them was, I'm trying to think if it was Montana, it was Idaho. We went to Boise.
So
So he
close.
would, very close, and to St. Louis. I did a few of those, and one of the outstanding assignments I had was Jim Henson went in 1987 to teach in Charleville-Mézières at the Puppet Institute there, and he did a 3-week summer workshop teaching his puppet video technique. And so I went as his assistant and basically worked with the students to build foam Muppet style characters that were used in the workshop that Jim taught. And so that was pretty remarkable. And I also did some camera work, but also at that time I was doing photography, and so I documented for myself and for just to be a part of the process, to document the process. So I took a lot of photography of the documented Jim teaching and the projects that we did there. So, and I can remember Jim saying to me at one point, I see you with the camera all the time, but I never see any of these images. And so that's sort of, so then I started to share, and ultimately he hired me several times to shoot several projects, which was very exciting.
I can't
Um,
even imagine being talked to by Jim Henson. Like, I
uh,
know it's a different situation for you, but just him being like that, be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, sir.
yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah.
show you all the pictures."
He was very generous. I have to, and very, just very open and very generous.
Yeah.
And this was a time when he was preparing to do the Jim Henson Hour.
Hmm.
So, and which was very much a very inclusive of his entire career and various styles and various projects. So, in the 2 weekends in the between the 3 weeks, he was going back to London, and they were doing production development for the Jim Henson Hour.
Mm.
I remember at this time. So it was very much, those 3 weeks were very much an overview of his career. As much as he was sharing his techniques, he was also it was also giving an overview of his career as well. And Rick Lyon, an American puppeteer who was part of that, who went as one of the participants, recorded a lot of his lectures, and those have been,
Oh wow.
he typed them all out, and I think online you can find some of those
Mm.
lectures. Certainly, there were the final projects that were done were also posted online. We did many little productions at the end of that. We went around the town, and they did they did storyboards and stories, and then we shot them, and they were edited as final projects for those 3 weeks.
Did he perform any of the
He
puppets?
did. Yeah, good question.
That's
He
awesome.
did. Kermit made an appearance in one of them. And
Yeah.
we did, one of them was the students had put together, was like a classroom situation. And then Kermit came by with a beret on and a baguette and looked in the
Kermit.
window. So, yeah, definitely Jim was part.
That's fun. I might have missed this, but were you building puppets before you went to work in the workshop?
Well, I built them at UConn. I built a lot
Okay.
of my own puppets, and I don't know if you could see some of them behind
Yeah.
me.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some, and I continued. The other thing that one of the things that I worked with Jane Henson ultimately,
Oh.
and she set up a foundation after Jim's. There's the Jim Henson. I make a distinction here. Jim Henson, during his lifetime, created a foundation called the Jim Henson Foundation. and that was to promote American puppetry.
Mhm.
So he took his money and put it into American puppeteers would apply for projects that they were working on, non-Muppet projects, and that's what he was promoting. He was promoting American puppetry, and so while I became a member of that foundation. I'm still on that foundation, vice president of it, but it's continued under his daughter, Cheryl Henson, who is the president of it. And she has been so generous in terms of continuing to put her monies and her vision into creating, promoting, and supporting American puppetry.
Mhm.
But at the same time, after Jim passed away, Jane Henson set up a foundation called the Jim Henson Legacy. And I think you spoke with Craig Shemin,
Yeah.
who
Mhm.
is so that foundation was very much in terms of keeping Jim Henson's legacy alive, his body of work, his vision, keeping that alive. And so one of the things I worked with her initially on that, just helping administratively to help with that. And Jane, another very generous with a vision. Was Jim's partner as when he started Muppets, and in Washington D.C. at the University of Maryland. And one of the things that Jane did was that there's a puppetry, there's a theater center in Connecticut called the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center, and Margaret Rufus Rose, who had the Rose Foundation and no, the Rose Marionette Theater, lived in Waterford, in the town there, and in developing in the '60s, developing this O'Neill Center, did puppetry there. And Jane Henson wanted to keep that vision of puppetry alive, so in 1991 started the National Puppetry Conference at the O'Neill Theater Center, where there's the playwrights conference and the music theater, but she wanted to keep puppetry alive in their name. And so she gave started a foundation, or gave monies, seed grant for a puppetry conference there, which is a 2 week conference, which continues. We're going into our 33rd year,
Mhm.
and it was very much about developing basically non-Muppet. The first season we did Muppet technique because we didn't have enough time to develop, inviting other puppeteers to develop new work, and we were really committed to new puppet theater work, not Muppet work. But the first season was puppet technique, and that involved Muppeteers, Marty Robinson, Kathy Mullen, and Pam Arciero. And I became artistic director of that for about 9 years after the first year, and I still involved. We're going our 33rd year, and I'm still involved in
Wow.
it. So it's pretty remarkable,
Huh.
and a lot of American puppeteers have gone through it.
Jane is somebody who we always wish that we could hear more about what she was doing, what she was thinking
Right?
about, all this stuff. And then it's like she was always there behind the scenes doing things. It's just like
Definitely,
I wish we could have known
definitely.
more about her. What was it like working with her?
Really wonderful. I mean, I got to travel with her quite a bit. She would do a lecture called Jim Henson, The Early Years, which she did it at the Detroit Institute of Art, and a video was done of it. But she would go and speak and show images and clips of their life together, their work together. And I would go with her on a number of these presentations. So we were pretty close, I would say. And she was on the foundation, the Jim Henson Foundation, for her entire life. And I would just say that this is a family that certainly all of the success, the benefits, and the profits that they received from the success of the Muppets, they put back into the art form, not only into the art of the Muppets, but into American puppetry, and have really made a difference in terms of the caliber in this country and worldwide.
Hmm.
It's remarkable. And after Jim's death, they did I think 7 festivals in New York City, which Cheryl headed up with Leslie Ash, another Muppet, workshop designer builder, and they had a team that created these international festivals in New York. So a really remarkable work
Yeah.
that continues to this day.
All right, but let's talk about you.
Uh, uh,
I want to know what it was like to work in the workshop. Was it like hard to was there like a learning curve to make Muppets?
I was fortunate enough to work on the majority of my experience was with Sesame Street, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when the season was longer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say 6 months out of the year, I was working, and I did this for 7 years. Worked on, there was a team of 4 or 5 of us. Carol Lee Wilcox, who was an original, worked with Jim originally from very early years, was the head of the workshop and the head of Sesame Street. One thing that was really wonderful about working with her is that when we would we'd create something, we were assigned, say, a prop or a Muppet. When there were wranglers that were on set that
Mm-hmm.
worked specifically to support the Muppets and did the rigging, and we worked in the workshop designing and building. But when we built a character, she would have us go on set with that prop or puppet to follow through, to see how it was working, what
Mm-hmm.
needed to be, what we could learn from that, and we would rig it as well for the puppeteers when we were there. And that really helped in our learning curve in terms of what we were creating in the workshop, to have that on-set experience. And then we would document. We would have a camera and we would document that for the archives. As well as building Muppets, she gave me the opportunity to head up different projects, like when we did, I'm trying to think of when we did a feature film, we did Follow That Bird in Toronto, which was the first feature film. And so I was assigned to be the head of that for Muppets, to be the head of that film project. So I went up for the
Cool.
summer to Toronto and was the coordinator of the puppets for that.
Yeah, we just watched that. That was
Aha.
that was great. I loved
Yeah.
it. It was
So
so funny.
if you looked at the last scene,
Uh-huh.
when Big Bird comes back to Sesame Street,
Right.
there's a whole crowd of people there. And a lot of it is the crew. I'm in there. There's a whole group of us that they needed bodies, they needed faces, and so we got to be in that final scene.
I love the street set in Sesame Street's great, but in that movie, I love how everything has a Muppet coming out of it. The trash cans all have Muppets
Yeah,
behind them. Every window has like a guy coming out of it.
right.
It just feels like, oh yeah, this is what it's
Yeah,
supposed to look like. This is
yeah.
what it would be like to live there.
And that was the first time there was an across the street.
Yeah,
No,
right.
they had to
Kind of
fill
weird.
they had to fill that in,
Uh-huh.
and there was some discussion about, well, what's that? Is that what the street in New York, is that what it feels like out there? And
Yeah.
choices were made. And
In the season of Sesame that we're discussing today,
yes.
we get to meet Placido Flamingo.
Mm.
So specifically talking about this idea of like going from the workshop to on set to documenting,
Right.
how does a character like Placido Flamingo go from an idea to a sketch on your desk to being on set?
It wasn't quite. I have to. It's many years ago, but Carol Lee would assign, if there was a character, to be a new character that was introduced. There was a team of 4 or 5 of us, and she would assign us. And occasionally, I got to build a character, and this was probably another one that I did was Meryl Sheep.
Mm-hmm.
That was based on a sheep that already existed, and then we modified and enhanced it all. But so we had Mark Saltzman did the script for the character, and it was for Richard Hunt. Richard Hunt, amazing performer,
Yeah.
was an opera aficionado. I mean, really loved the opera. So for creating for him, he really had an affinity for opera and the theatricality of that. So added so much more to the character. But literally, I was given a script, and then I did some sketches, and did some research into flamingos and all of that. And then Carol Lee was I have to tell, very much a part of the process in terms of, but that's all in terms of, that sketch has been, was originally just a blue line
Mm-hmm.
drawing on a vellum paper was all that was there. And then in terms of picking the materials, the swatches of fabric, and all of that. That really filled out the whole character.
How long did it take to build him, or like how long do you have in general to build these things?
I want to say no more than 3 weeks. I'm throwing
Okay,
that out as a general framework.
sure. That's
Um,
honestly way longer than I was expecting. I thought it
yeah,
would be like, we need this guy tomorrow. You're
yeah,
really
no,
gonna be
no. I
done.
would say 2 to 3 weeks in that, and basically it's a team. I designed it. I built the head and all of that, and then another puppet builder built the body
Mm-hmm.
and the costume. I didn't build the costume, so there was a costumer dedicated on the team. So
Okay.
so it's a teamwork,
Yeah.
I would say, of how it came together.
Yeah.
And then it was funny. I shoot at the Met and at the Met Opera, and this is years ago. I met Placido Domingo, and he had come on and done I don't know if it was the 20th anniversary, but had done a beautiful Singing on the Street with Placido Flamingo. They did a duet, and then all these
Oh.
puppets. So if you see that, I think, don't quote me, but I think it's on the 20th anniversary special,
Okay.
or it was there was a special, but he made an appearance and they did a duet, and it was a beautiful, beautiful duet together. And when I met him at the Met Opera, I said, "Oh, I introduced myself," and he said, "Oh, I wish they would write more. I would love to return. I would love to make another appearance," which never happened. But anyway, so he had a great time with it as well. And Richard Hunt, it was his idea. I don't know if you remember, there was a kerchief that
Yeah.
and that's from Pavarotti.
Mm.
Ah,
It was a signature of Pavarotti. So
right.
he put it together with Placido Flamingo. So,
So the character was Richard's idea or no?
I don't know
Okay.
the origin of that.
Okay.
I'm not certain how it came about, but it was definitely a script ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
What made you move away from the design part of the job to focus on photography? Was it a slow progression where you just realized like I'm just doing photography a lot more, or was there a day where you made the decision to switch from like done with the workshop,
Yeah.
I'm a photographer now?
Well, what happened was, as I began to dabble it and really loving it, and photographing what I know, I love performance, and so it was really, that affinity for how much I love the theater and performance and dance. Carol Lee allowed me to, for example, one summer I applied and got a position at the Williamstown Theater Festival up in Massachusetts, which is it still exists, and it was quite a renowned theater. Went up and was the photographer for the summer, so I was able to have that experience, and it was starting to take off, and so that was sort of like I had to make the choice ultimately. But I was still doing Sesame Street began to hire me. So I was still connected with puppetry. But at the same time, the idea of having this freelance it was starting to take off. Um, I was working, Carol Lee allowed me to, my last couple of seasons, I was able to take off part of the year and do the photography and then go back and do Sesame Street. So I had this back and forth, and it was ultimately also, what happened is my partner was as a dramaturg director, and he got a job in Cleveland at the Cleveland Playhouse full time as their director and dramaturg. So I began to split my time between Cleveland. I was photographing out there, and it was finally I was back and forth, still doing Sesame and Muppets, and it was like, okay, I need to make this transition. And so personally, it also it was a great sort of way to say, okay, let's make this happen.
So when you go in for a day of
Yeah.
photographing Sesame
Yes.
Street,
Yes.
what do you have goals? What's your overarching goal?
It's very comprehensive. I have to tell you, in terms of what we're documenting, we are doing what's on camera. So we're trying to capture as they're photographing as well. Then we can do setup, a quick setup, because then you're stopping the progression of the day. So you really need to be very quick.
Mhm.
And you have to realize that Muppets in focus, their eyes are so prominent, you want to get them looking at your camera. So we do these setups where as opposed to when they're in action and relating to each other or relating to other video cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So their focus is off from your shot. You do a setup in which they are focused at your camera. Everything stops. And how we do this is there's a camera, a main camera, video camera. You have them focus on that, and then you're stepping into that focus because
Mm-hmm.
they're looking at their
Because
monitor.
they can tell on the
Right.
monitor. Yeah.
Right. So
Right.
they're looking at their monitor. So this is a way of doing a quick setup. They're looking at your camera now, taking the shots and then getting out of the way and letting them continue so that's part of that process. The other thing is you're doing behind the scenes. So if the director's working with them or the puppeteers, you're getting them looking and performing. And the other thing is if we have guests on camera, not on camera, but we have guests that are coming to visit the set, then you're shooting some behind the scenes stuff with them, trying to capture them. And if you have a guest star
Mm-hmm.
who's there for an afternoon or a morning, that's getting their experience as well as them on set. So there's lots of, and it's a long day. You start 8:30 in the morning and you go to an average 7 at night. It's a very comprehensive but fun.
Through the years, you photographed probably every Muppet that's appeared on Sesame Street and with the Muppets. Do you have
Yeah.
a favorite puppet to photograph?
Oh, that's interesting. That's a good question. I don't know. I just see them as such a family, such a
Mm-hmm.
I have to tell you the energy on set with the performers there, it's a wonderful energy, a wonderful sense of play. And I think that is really important to the quality of the work that they're creating. So to watch the performers create, I was talking about Jim and Frank and Carol Spinney and to see them how they create. There's a wonderful energy, and to see that and to witness that and to document that is a real gift.
Mm-hmm.
And to see the interplay with the director and with the cameraman and to see how they're creating as they're coming up with lines and taking the script and really seeing it develop and grow because it's their characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a character for a day. It's really a character that lives with them, is part of them. So that's a real gift.
This is a question that might be equally as difficult. Do you have any favorite photos that you've taken?
When I was in Charlottesville and documenting, there's a couple of them that have been. There's one, Brian. The wonderful thing about Charlottesville is when Jim was there, he had his kids come over.
Mm-hmm.
They were young, they came over for a week. At least four. He had 5 children. I think 4 of them in the course of that came over. So it was Jim spending time while he was working. It was important for him to spend time with his kids. And this was a way of sharing his experience, but also for him to be a father with them.
Yeah.
And so Brian came over and was puppeteering and showing technique. So I have a wonderful photo of Jim and Brian puppeteering with 2 of these foam characters, generic characters, looking down at a monitor. So it's the 2 of them. And it's a pretty. Brian has it in his home, I understand.
Yeah.
It was in People magazine when Jim passed away. And another one is Jim lecturing. He's got a chalkboard and he's got a picture of a monitor and he's with his hands this way and he's talking about framing to the picture frame, to the TV frame with the character. So that's him teaching. So that's another one that I remember. And the last shot I would say with Jim is just before he passed away. He had a deal that he was making with Disney,
Right.
And you probably know about that, where the Muppet characters were going to go to Disney, and so he was doing a lot of there were video interviews that were done that they were putting on a tape for Disney. They were doing a lot of prep for this transition. And one of the things he hired me for was to photograph the 6 main puppeteers. So it was Jerry, Dave, Steve Whitmire, Richard Hunt, and himself. And we did it in the Muppet Mansion on the stairs. It's a black and white photo. And they stood and they sat. And I photographed this group of puppeteers, and Jerry Nelson was the sixth.
Yeah.
And so I want to say this was taken about maybe 3 to 4 weeks before he passed away.
Wow.
So, and that's a very special photo to me.
You've been there for so much Muppet stuff. That's amazing.
Well, there's many more that have been there are much more integral, but I've been there,
Yeah.
for 42 years. I think now this is my 42nd season with Sesame, and
That's amazing.
anyway, so it's been an amazing. I've been very lucky, very lucky.
Well, I think it's important to note just how many of these moments too that we look at as these quintessential Muppet moments you've been there to document, thankfully, because
Yeah, we're seeing them through you.
Yeah.
Well, the people that do the video, one of the camera, Frank Biondo, who was there from the beginning, just retired in his 80s and was there from the pilot to like a season, 2 seasons ago, and he's still going strong. So there's people that have, there's amazing people that are still involved.
Yeah. Seems like it must be a pretty nice place to work if you'll work there.
It is. It is.
I also I dabble in photography, so I feel like I could go on for 3 more hours just about photography questions, but obviously that's not why we're here today.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, what lenses are you using? What cameras? Like that's where my brain goes.
I have to tell you, I'll talk a little, if you'd like, is that we started, of course, with film.
Right.
And I would have a black and white camera body and a color. And we were dealing with slides and black and white. And the ISO, the sensitivity then, tungsten slide film was 160. Or went to 320, you would push it. And anytime you did a setup, you would have your black and white. You'd have to do it in black and white and color, and you'd have to switch the lens maybe. And people were like, "Oh, you just shot it. Wait, no, I got to get in color now." They're holding their hands up. They're like,
right.
And you're like, and now the ISO is like, I'm at 6400. I'm at 3200. You're like digital. People say, "Oh, wouldn't you want to go back to film?" And I'm like, no way. These guys are moving. You want to shoot fast. You want to catch them in the gesture, in the movement.
There's definitely a warmth and a nice quality to those old film photos, but the ease of being able to capture, you can capture 36 photos in a few seconds as opposed to having to deal with that switching lenses, taking 5 minutes for a setup.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it really it's a digital is a wonderful, it's a real gift. I want to tell one story about Frank Ballard. I'll add that. I've told this a number of times, but when I was in elementary school, my mother was the secretary of the school. We lived right next to the school, and I was dabbling and playing with puppets and dolls and all of this. Always had that sort of, and was exposed to theater and all of that. But when I was in elementary school, a marionette production of Rigoletto came into the school. Marionette production, very small, but I was like, it was my aha moment. I was just like moved by just emotionally, visually, and the puppets. And I went to the library and, started building my own marionettes and all. And ultimately joined Puppeteers of America. I would just promote that, and still am a member. And, but I met Frank Ballard in high school through one of his students, and he became my father figure, my artistic, shepherd through school. And years later, he suffered from Parkinson's, unfortunately, into his 80s. But I was visiting him one day in convalescent home and just making conversation. And I said to him, I don't know if I've ever told you this story about how my aha moment with puppets and this production, this marionette production of Rigoletto, was a school assembly program that I saw. And he said, I was the advisor on that production.
That's crazy.
I was like, oh my, to this day, that we had never talked about that, and that his hand was there at my youth. pulling me towards puppets, pulling me into the art form. So I just want to put that out there as a. Oh, and the other thing I want to add, I'm going to add. This is a story I tell, but you ask about the transition from puppetry to photography, and I just want to put this out there to young artists, young people, that you never know the possibilities of where your life and where the journey is going to go. And I never in my youth or in college would have said I'm going to be a performing arts photographer. But I just want to say be open
Mm-hmm.
to doors that open, possibilities in your life. You don't know where they will lead. Keep your eye on your vision, your what you're all about, but also be aware of where other doors will lead you, and to explore and to be open to possibilities in your life.
Yeah.
So that is my words of from my life experience.
Thank you so much for not only sharing those words of wisdom with us, but also just for being here with us and
Uh,
giving us your time today.
uh,
Yeah, this is a thrill for us. I
I'm
think.
Mm-hmm.
honored. I'm
Really
honored
is.
to it's I you guys all the best, and I hope you'll keep in touch. And if you come to New
Yeah.
York, please let me know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, we
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Definitely.
Thank you. The
yeah.
best, Matthew and Sam. All the very best to both of you.
Well, thank you to Richard Termine for joining us today. That was an amazingly fun chat. But for now, Sam, it's time for you to tell the people what we watched this week.
This week we watched selections from Sesame Street's 17th season, which aired in 1985 and 1986. First, we watched a full episode, which aired on November 18th, 1985, which begins with Big Bird making us a promise. By the end of this episode of Sesame Street, something will happen that has never happened before. And that thing is, everyone will meet Snuffy and know that he is real. And Big Bird's got a plan, which he explains to Snuffy. He has pre-prepared everyone on Sesame Street to come running as fast as they can when he starts shouting the word food. And now, because Snuffy's here, is the perfect time to execute that plan. So Big Bird starts shouting, but Snuffy is so excited about this plan that he decides that he needs to leave and tell his mom all about it. So Big Bird is frantically shouting. His friends are frantically rushing to his nest, but they're too late. Snuffy's already gone by the time they get there, which doesn't help Big Bird's case that Snuffy is real at all. Gordon, who at this point believes Big Bird that Snuffy is real, suggests that he gets someone to help him keep Snuffy in place next time, but no one volunteers to help. No one besides Elmo, that is. The little red monster pops out, basically fully formed and ready to be a megastar, and offers to hold Snuffy in place by his trunk the next time he shows up. So the pair do a test run using a decoy Snuffy, which pisses everybody off, but later that day, the real Snuffy comes back. Big Bird starts yelling food, and Snuffy declares that he has to go home and brush his hair so he looks nice to meet everybody, but Elmo seizes him by the trunk and holds on with all his little might. Big Bird runs out onto the street to usher everyone back to his nest, and, after steeling himself to witness such a reality-changing event, goes back to his nest himself to find all of his friends in total shock, staring down the barrel of a real bona fide Mr. Snuffleupagus. Snuffy and Big Bird quickly decide that they're actually a little bit pissed that it took so long for the grown-ups to believe them, which everybody admits is totally fair. So they apologize, then line up to be formally introduced to Big Bird's formerly imaginary friend. All that, and I didn't even mention that talk show host Phil Donahue shows up for an overly long cameo in which he interviews everybody about the situation. I did not expect Elmo to be part of this revelation, but I really did not expect Donahue to be a huge part of this revelation.
No one ever expects Donahue.
No. He's just standing there, and it's like, is he gonna do anything?
Seems like he had an off day from work, and he was like, "Oh no, I'm good to hang out." And they're like, "Oh, you're just gonna be here all day?" And he's like, "Yeah, why?" And it's like, "Okay, I guess, yeah, just stay out of the way."
Next, we watched some street scenes from the January 9th, 1986 episode featuring the debut of Placido Flamingo, an opera singing flamingo. He shows up and starts training Telly and some kids to be his backup chorus for his new opera, because why not? And Bob is lured down by the sweet sound of music, much like a Looney Tunes character floating on the aroma of a pie, and he starts singing too. Bob is really into all of this situation until it's revealed that to participate in the opera, he's going to have to dress up in a flamingo costume. But the allure of the stage trumps any feelings of shame that Bob may possess, and he puts on the costume to sing in Placido Flamingo's big show. Placido? Placido Flamingo. It almost rhymes, and it kind of does. Then we pivot to a different story in which scientist Dr. Nobel Price scams David out of ice cream in a con masquerading as a science experiment. He's a genius, all right. A criminal genius. Then we watched street scenes from the February 8th, 1986 episode, featuring the debut of another beloved, long running character whose name you all surely know, Leo the Party Monster. Leo Boston.
Party!
Okay, look. Let me tell you what happens, and then I'll explain what happened to me. Leo bops into Luis's fix-it shop with a problem. His beloved boombox is on the fritz, hampering his ability to party. Luis fixes it and then helps Leo use his computer to send out invites to his big party. I wouldn't let this guy use my computer.
There's only so much damage you could do with a computer
That
back
old.
in the mid
That's
80s.
true. I wouldn't
Like-
let him use my computer now.
I guess war games had come out, so maybe there was
Yeah.
some fear that he could have caused nuclear war, but
I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about all the porno he'd look up.
oh
for sure.
yeah.
So this whole time, Luis and Maria are sort of annoyed by Leo and find him strange and possibly a little pathetic. But as they leave for the night, they hear the sounds of his party drifting down from his apartment window, and it sounds fun. It sounds like this little guy might know how to throw a party. So they stare up very sadly, disappointed that they weren't invited to the party, when Leo looks out the window, spots them, and yells for them to come up. And they do, and everybody parties. And what happened to me was very similar to what happened to Luis and Maria, in that at first I was like, I hate this guy. And then by the end, I was like, I love this guy. I want to hang out with this
pretty
guy.
cool guy.
He's actually really cool. I love how he's like balding. He's not coded as a child at all. He's like, and he's listening to like disco music almost. So he's like clearly a 70s like burnout guy.
Right, he was hanging out at Studio 54 a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Then we watched a couple of scenes of yet another still beloved character's debut, Dexter, the nightmarish juggler. He's a big, tall, purple monster who looks and sounds like he'd kill you without a thought. Susan finds him juggling on the street, and I guess she's got a death wish because she starts teasing Dexter that he's addicted to juggling. So he starts throwing his balls away to show her that he's not addicted to juggling, but he's got more balls or whatever, so he just keeps juggling. What Susan doesn't know is that juggling is the only thing that keeps the beast inside Dexter at bay. And then he teaches Gordon how to juggle or something. I don't really remember what happens in that second one.
I mean, that was actually kind of sweet and less menacing because he actually
Yes.
does seem to be able to teach Gordon how to juggle pretty
That's
successfully.
That's true. That's true. In the first one, he's just like, I can stop juggling. He literally says, I can stop juggling whenever I want.
And then he's
Not
proven
case.
wrong that he
Yeah.
cannot stop.
And finally, we watched some highlights from the season, and man, there are a lot of songs in Sesame Street now. Count sings a song from his youth, The Batty Bat, which is pretty in line with old Sesame Street. Some cowboys sing a song about reading. Ernie sings about being a knight, and also he sings about watering a plant. Kermit sings Caribbean Amphibian, which, if I'm not mistaken, he'll sing with the late, great Jimmy Buffett someday. Is that right?
Yes.
And a Billy Idol Muppet sings about the Rebel L, a living letter L who's so loud and nasty, the cops come and arrest him. Also, Count's Counting Sheep quit after being overcounted. Yo-Yo Ma plays a tune with the honkers and dingers, which was exciting to me because we're starting to get into guest stars that I know. Isn't that wild? I didn't know Yo-Yo Ma was around that long, actually.
Well, and is an amazing guest star.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably why he was a guest star on literally everything. You remember he was just always around for a
Yeah.
little while when we were kids.
It was like they were like, hey, we want to class up the joint.
Yeah.
Call Yo-Yo Ma.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's like really charming. And Gladys also has a very fun skit where she applies to be a cowgirl but quits immediately when she finds out that it entails waking up at the crack of dawn to do a bunch of chores all day. I also appreciated in this skit that they made it clear that this was not a cow ranch, which would have been a really screwed up thing for Gladys to work on.
Yeah, it is a
It's
rooster.
a rabbit. A
and
rabbit,
rabbit.
ranch.
Yeah.
Yes.
There are some other things happening in season 17 that we didn't get to see because, again, there's 1,000 episodes of this show, and we don't watch all of them. But one of the biggest storylines in season 17, besides Snuffy becoming real to the adults, is that they do a multi-episode arc about Gordon and Susan adopting their son Miles. And they
Oh,
use
wow.
those episodes to teach about physical developments of infants and infant care. So there's a new baby on the street. They teach about adoption. They teach about infant care. So that's the big arc for the season.
Interesting.
Also, Danny DeVito shows up a few times in this season.
He's the
which-
baby.
yeah, he plays unfortunately, no. But he does show up a few times to hang out with Oscar, do a few appearances.
Oh, sure.
At one point in the season, Gordon babysits Snuffy. Maria and Grungetta go shoe shopping together. And
Babysits Snuffy?
yeah,
Snuffy's very. I feel like Snuffy's been not a child before, right? Maybe? Snuffy's a little inconsistent.
yeah, I'd say so. I think he often seems like he's 60 years old, but other times
Maybe it's
is
just his
treated
voice.
like a 4-year-old.
Yeah, right.
But aside from Placido Flamingo, Dexter, and Leo the Party Monster, there are some other notable characters who debut this season that we did not see. One duo is Chip and Dip, a couple of cat characters who will stick around for several seasons.
That's a great name for a cat duo.
It just makes me think too much of Chip and Dale, though.
Yeah, that's
And I'm
true.
like, that's a duo already. Like,
Yeah.
having another duo with Chip in it seems like hubris. More notable than Chip and Dip, Baby Natasha debuts in season 17.
Is that a Grouch baby?
It's just
Who's
a
that?
monster baby.
Okay.
But I feel like Baby Natasha is one of those Muppets that you don't realize you know until you see her and you're like, oh, I've seen that Muppet.
Oh, I've seen that Muppet.
Yeah,
exactly
there we go.
right. It's her name's Natasha.
See? Yeah, Baby Natasha.
All right, interesting.
Who I think mostly, if not always, just speaks in baby babbles. Well, yeah, getting into this batch of Sesame Street, what'd you think, Sam? Does it feel different? Does it feel new? Does it feel like all the other Sesame Street we've ever watched?
It feels different, mostly in that there really did seem to be a lot more songs, and there were a lot. I felt like at least there were a lot less skits with puppets. Like the best of, we were seeing, and this is probably indicative of a big change too. In the best of, we'll usually see quite a few animated segments.
Right.
In this one, we didn't see barely any. There was maybe one at the beginning and then one halfway through or something.
It is hard because, like, obviously these best of clips we're choosing to watch are just made by a person on YouTube
Right.
who is they're putting this together.
Yeah.
You can look through. There's segments on Muppet Wiki that will list segments by season to show you all the new stuff they recorded for that year.
Mhm.
The one thing I will say is I think you're right overall. I think there are more songs happening, but whoever made this, I think, has an anti-Elmo bias.
Oh, was there lots
Because
of Elmo this year?
there's at least more Elmo than we saw because we only see Elmo in the episode we watched. Elmo doesn't
Oh,
appear at all in the best of segment.
This
But
is how history gets rewritten.
yeah, like I
Wow.
think if we happened to be able to watch all of Sesame Street that was around at this time for this podcast, we would be experiencing Elmo already in, he is doing one-on-one segments with Kermit. He is having whole
Whoa.
episodes shaped around him learning magic. So
Yeah,
they're
from our perspective, it seems completely out of place when he pops up out of Big Bird's nest.
right. And I think, to be fair, this is the first season this starts to happen. This is the first season where, like, Kevin Clash is fully in as the character of Elmo, and Elmo is a lot more like what he will become. So I think this is new, but whoever made this best of season 17 playlist compilation video,
No
maybe not a
Elmo's
fan of
allowed.
Elmo.
I think it was funny that it seems like and I wish we could have seen more Elmo. It seems like the undercurrent with Elmo is that the grown-ups are annoyed by him because he like scares Luis and Luis is like, God, come on, man. And it just seems like that must be kind of a running joke, is that he is just like loud and annoying in a way that is like what in the real world people are like, oh, he's so loud and annoying. Maybe not realizing that maybe that was his original joke, was that he's supposed to be loud and annoying. Is that the case at all? Do you know?
I don't know if that is, like, decidedly the case, but he
Maybe
does
Luis just
seem...
hated him.
I think he seems more obnoxious and more in the way as sort of a character trait of, like,
Yeah.
he's a little bit more of a nuisance as opposed to, like, a kid they want to take care of, which I think Elmo
Right.
becomes later on,
Right.
where the adults are much more happy to see Elmo and happy to help him, whereas in this they're just like, how'd you get here?
Yeah, I guess they're pretty used to the monsters just kind of being self-sufficient if they're not. they're not needed. They don't need much care, even if they're always saying, "I'm only 4. I can still live outside on the street." I guess that's okay though, or in this trash can. But I guess I'll need to hunt down more Elmo in the future, like purposefully.
Yeah, I think
Hmm.
we'll keep an eye out for more Elmo. We had so many new characters this time. I didn't want to add too much extra
Yeah.
Elmo in, but we had to, we have to devote time to Dexter.
But I guess overall, I thought it was fine. It felt like a very generic season of Sesame Street. Like the best of felt very generic to me. There wasn't anything that really stood out to me as like that was amazing. That was a hilarious Bert and Ernie sketch. That was a whatever.
Right. Yeah, there's some Ernie stuff I definitely want to talk about that we'll get into, but I think for me it's watching these things and just realizing again how much Sesame Street is repeated season after season and how they reuse so many clips and so many
Hmm.
cartoons and all this stuff. I would love if Muppet Wiki had a feature where you could organize like all of Sesame Street original things in chronological
Oh, in
order.
chronological
So that way
order.
you could see like everything like new in the order it came out as a
Yeah,
like so that way it's
right.
like when there's repeated episodes or there's repeated stuff like it doesn't get included in the list 20 times.
Yeah,
You just see it in the order, uh and
that'd
maybe
be
there is a
great.
hidden secret way in Muppet Wiki to do that. If so, let me know, guys. But yeah, that's where like if we ever wanted to go back and catch up on some Sesame Street stuff, that would be the only way we could ever realistically go back and look at some stuff to see what we've
Right,
missed is to
right.
see what wasn't repeated. Because if we picked a random season 13 episode and most of it's from season 7, it's like, what did we learn today?
Yeah. Or and there's like I think there was like a Bert and Ernie where Ernie's like can't go to sleep, so he sings a crazy song about how he tries to go to sleep and he
Hmm.
brings the sheep in and stuff. And I was like, this is great, but I'm pretty sure we've seen this before. And then it's like, oh, I guess I'll look it up on Muppet Wiki for the millionth time what we've seen and not seen before. And that was old. Like we've seen that already, right? The boogie woogie sheep thing.
Yeah, that's from season 13.
Okay.
So we probably saw that one in the best of season 13 episode
Right.
we did. So, but again, some of this stuff does start to run together, and there's a lot of bits about Ernie and Bert trying to sleep. So I
That's
think
true.
I think I also maybe didn't even remember that we did watch that one.
Is it MTV that's making there be so many songs, or like what is the
That's a
song
good
thing? To
point.
me, feels like this is an easier thing to default to than writing like a classic comedy skit. Does that make sense? Like it's easier to write a song parody than it is to write Bert and Ernie having a back and forth.
I mean, I don't know if that's true, but I think you can get away with the song parodies being more of your Muppets that don't involve Jim and Frank.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Not that they haven't done sketches in the past without Jim and Frank, but I think it is something where, if you're going to have a random whatnot anything Muppet singing a Billy Idol parody,
Mm-hmm.
like that's something you can do more easily, I guess. But it is interesting that from what we saw, there's a lot more music, and I would say MTV is probably the primary driver of that, just
Mm-hmm.
because if similar to like when they started off Sesame Street, they were worried about kids watching too much TV and specifically commercial jingles, and so they were like, how do we capture the energy of commercials in a kids TV show?
Mm-hmm.
Now kids are probably changing the channel over to MTV, and they're like, okay, well, how do we get the kids to watch us, or at least
Right.
be as interested in us as they are in MTV? It's also interesting thinking back of like the Rebel L example specifically. We had this on the Muppet Show a lot too, where we obviously don't think of those songs as modern or current, but at the
Uh-huh.
time that song was like 2 years old.
Right.
So that happened a lot on the Muppet Show too, where they're covering what we think of as like a classic hit song, and the song was like 6 months old. So yeah, like it
Yeah,
was just
that's
what was
true.
on the radio. So it sounds weird to us now when we hear the Muppets or Sesame Street do a parody of a Billie Eilish song or
Yeah,
something like that, where we're like,
that's
oh,
right.
this feels weird, but
Right.
that's what they've always done.
Right.
Like I remember specifically in the 2011 Muppets movie when they were doing like the Moulin Rouge, uh, Voulez-vous
Yeah.
coucher avec moi? Uh,
Uh-huh.
I was like, this feels weird. And then because I think I just always associated the Muppets with classic songs.
Right. And now that's a classic song.
I guess so.
I
They
mean,
do
it
also
kind of
sing "Smells
is.
Like Teen Spirit" in that movie, so
Yeah. These
they're
are
hitting
all
all the
songs that are
classics.
on oldies stations now, or just like
Oh boy.
classic rock stations, especially Nirvana. Man, it's disturbing to me how much Nirvana and Red Hot Chili Peppers there are on like oldies, basically oldie stations
Yeah, like
now.
Red Hot Chili Peppers is like easy listening now.
Yeah. It's got to be like one of the most played bands of all time, I would say. I don't think I ever get in my car and don't hear a Red Hot Chili Peppers song.
I barely
Yeah.
ever listen to the radio, so I avoid Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Mm.
But diving in a bit to this first episode we watched, the season premiere of season 17, uh, this is the day everyone on Sesame Street is finally going to meet Snuffy. And the next 3 episodes apparently would involve Snuffy getting to know the adults better,
Oh,
hence
that's
Gordon
nice.
babysitting him.
Right.
But in this episode, Big Bird talks about the millions and billions of times he's heard the adults talk about his imaginary friend, and we get a montage of the adults being super shitty to Big Bird.
Very cruel montage. Yeah.
Yeah, and him having to defend himself. And it's not even
Yeah.
like it doesn't seem like actual clips from old episodes. It seems like new insulting things they
Yeah.
came up with
Right.
specifically for this montage.
Yeah. Bob is the primary offender.
Bob is
When it comes to insulting Big Bird for his beliefs, Bob is the one who actually like gets pretty personal with it. Everybody else kind of just like, I don't have time for this, Big Bird. And Bob's like, you're an idiot. No one is ever going to believe you.
Well, I feel like Bob also is one who harshly judges the other adults who
Mhm.
are
Right.
uh,
Including like his love interest or whatever, right? He's like,
yeah, Bob
he
and
and Linda,
Linda.
they must like have tons of fights about this in their personal lives.
They're just laying in bed, and she's like, "I'm thinking about Snuffy again. He's gotta be real, right?" And Bob's like, "I'm sleeping on the couch. I can't have this argument again." What do you think of Big Bird's secret word of food?
I didn't think it was so worth I didn't think it was so worth scorn that we had to get Donahue involved for like 10 minutes to talk
They
about it.
they do a whole segment about how silly of a secret word it is.
Yeah, and for a while I was like, oh, I thought we were talking about just like the whole Snuffy situation, which would have been better if they were just
Yes.
like, do you believe in Snuffy? Okay, why don't you believe in Snuffy? That would have been more in line with like what Donahue does, and also would have been more clever. The food thing just felt like a very sweaty premise to me. It is a very strange thing to pick, but obviously they picked it because they had some food. They were teaching about food that day for some reason.
Right, but do
I
you
don't
think
know
the
why.
word snuffy could have been more useful?
Yeah, if you just said, Snuffy's here, come on, everybody.
Yeah, like why does he need a secret word to imply that Snuffy is there?
Good point. If you had been on Sesame Street, you really would have shut down the whole debate.
I mean, I'm sure there was somebody else sitting there going like, "Oh, this is why, because we're teaching about food and
Yeah.
it's fun and we need the whole thing about it being silly." So
Yeah.
shut up, Matt.
It is like crazy that this landmark episode has an entire Donahue section to it that has art like it didn't age poorly, but it's so who is this guy? They don't even really say who he is.
It's very of the time, and there's a few moments throughout these episodes and things we watched this week that are so mid 80s that
Yeah.
they almost don't even make sense
And
to.
it's weird that hasn't really happened that we've seen that much before.
Yeah, it feels more referential and in ways that is not approachable.
Yeah.
Like for me specifically, the Miami Mice sketch.
Oh my god, it was so bad.
Was one where I was just like, I don't know what's happening. Like these jokes are not funny to somebody who has not watched every episode of Miami Vice.
At the end of that one, I wrote, that feels like something I would have done, and I don't mean that in a nice way. And that guy and the accent that one of them was using was just like, isn't this what the show is about not doing?
Yeah, it's that, mid 80s Sesame Street of teaching Spanish to the kids through a little bit of stereotypes.
Through an offensive Spanish like accent, yeah.
Right, where it's like, maybe good intentions here, poor execution.
Yeah. And maybe it really is just that I don't care about Miami Vice, because like I'm sure if we watch the Twin Peaks one, I'll be like, oh, that was kind of cool. and other people would say that was so stupid.
That'd be me,
But
as someone who's never watched Twin Peaks.
yeah, but I feel like that one at least maybe has kind of a vibe that this one was just like, I don't know, it just was generic. I didn't get a feel for.
Yeah, I think even a worse offender of that in this batch is the soap opera after
Oh,
school in the afternoon.
that was really weird because that's like a 50s thing.
Well, so they had the current ABC lineup of soap operas was Love in the Afternoon. They had a
Oh,
campaign
okay.
going on ABC about love in the afternoon. And so it was a reference to that, which again, Sesame Street has always parodied things that are more for adults, but for kids, and it goes over the head, and that's fine. But
Yeah.
this was just nothing.
That's like a commercial that you maybe would have seen.
Well, and I think
Like,
there's totally ways, though, to do this. Like you're saying with the Twin Peaks
yeah,
one or like the Mad Men one that we've referenced before, where you can do that homage and still have it be good for people who haven't seen the original thing.
right.
It can be
Yeah,
good, a standalone thing on its own. And I
yeah,
think both of those leaned so heavily on you needing to know the references that they
yeah,
just didn't work.
yeah. I mean, like beyond that, they weren't parodying, as far as I know, specific soap operas within that either.
I don't
They
think
were
so.
parodying like the generic idea of a soap opera from a couple decades before this even aired in the first place.
Well, then we get another Snuffy segment where they're real excited about this secret word plan. So he's going to go tell his mom about it. So, of course, the first time they try it, doesn't work.
Snuffy's part of the problem, is what this taught me.
Yeah, no, you talked about the plan, Snuffy. You understood the plan. You've all agreed what the plan was.
Yeah,
And of course, the moment it starts to happen, you decide to run off at your
yeah,
very slow pace to your cave, which I'm guessing is not extremely close by. But yes, this is the point where Bob gets shitty. Gordon and Maria are still convinced he's real. And this is
and
where,
Linda.
yes, that's true. And this is the point at which you mentioned Gordon suggests Big Bird get someone to help him keep Snuffy where he is. But Gordon can't help. Gordon
Yeah,
suggests
no,
this, and is
nobody
immediately like,
really has time to help.
I can't help.
Yeah,
But because he says him and Susan have to fill out some important paperwork and get to the post office, which
yep.
sounds vague and like a lie, but I think they're probably alluding to the adoption papers.
Oh,
Like knowing that is coming up, I'm guessing they're like laying the
dropping a
groundwork.
little breadcrumb for you.
Yeah.
They did get kind of serious in that moment.
Right. Like he's like, I would love to help, but I have to fill out some important paperwork.
Yeah,
Susan has to as well. And
yeah,
then we have to get it to the post office. And
yeah.
it's weird that they don't elaborate,
Uh-huh.
but knowing the Miles stuff is coming up, I assume that's what they're referencing.
Interesting. Yeah. And everybody else just doesn't want to waste their damn time.
No, yeah,
sitting
yeah.
there.
No, Maria
Yeah.
doesn't jump in and say, I can help.
She's helped enough. She knows what happens when you try to help these guys. You end up in an evil carnival trying to steal keys off of somebody. And
Well, this is when Elmo shows up to help and says, Elmo just want to help Big Bird.
yeah, and scares the shit out of Luis as he jumps up
Mhm.
from behind him.
For now, Elmo wants to help Big Bird, but eventually he will take over
Oh,
his top spot
Elmo
on the
wants
show.
to replace Big Bird. Yes, I want to usher out the old guard. And I was like, when Elmo popped up, I was like, it's crazy that this storyline that started in the first season of Sesame Street basically is resolving, and Elmo is there to help. I did
Well,
not
and
expect that.
to anyone maybe who hasn't watched Sesame Street in the order and way we are watching it, if you were just wondering, hey, when did Snuffy get revealed to the adults, and you go back and look it up and watch this clip, Elmo being there probably won't weird you out
Yeah,
because you know Elmo at this point. You're used
yeah.
to Elmo. So Elmo being a part of the story is like, of course, yeah, Elmo, Sesame Street, got it. But for us,
We
this
never seen this
is
guy in our lives. Last time we saw him, he was going like, "I'm
yeah.
Elmo." Yeah,
Hey, I'm Elmo. How's it
Yeah.
going?
yeah.
But yeah, no, it is very interesting to see him tagging along. Well, this is when Phil Donahue shows up for some reason.
Yeah, and this is like when I was thinking about Phil Donahue being in this, it was also like, since it's the culmination of such a big story, it's like when you read an old comic book, like when you read like Infinity Gauntlet or whatever, and like one of the main characters is like Pip the Troll or something, and it's like,
Right.
who the fuck is this guy? And I was like, this is actually the most popular comic book character of all time at this particular moment. But everyone has forgotten that he exists. Phil Donahue was like, like the Adam Warlock of this. Just
Yeah,
a vestigial cultural hanger on.
yeah. Say worth noting. Yeah, Phil Donahue had a show for 26 years.
Yeah, crazy.
That started off in 1967 and went, I guess, until this says on Wikipedia, 1967 to 1996 is when he had essentially a TV show running in various forms. So he was still very large at this time, and I vaguely remember him from when I was a kid.
I do too, and I probably honestly remember him more from stuff like this where they're making fun of him, like there probably were SNL skits or something where somebody had a white wig on. But I do remember I was reading his Wikipedia page, people fainting in his audience. Which turned out
Yeah.
to be a hoax in the end, but I do remember late night hosts and stuff making hay out of the fact that people would faint watching Donahue. But yeah, he kind of, I don't know if he started it, but like he really popularized that format of like the audience getting really rowdy. Probably actually, who's the other guy who's more scumbaggy?
I feel like this is a bold claim. I don't know who you're going to mention.
The other show where the
Jerry
bouncers
Springer?
would, like, yes.
Okay.
Probably actually Jerry Springer maybe started that, but Donahue was like the more sanitized version of that, I think, where he would just like run through the audience and be like, yeah.
Which we get to see sort of.
Mhm.
They try to translate that to him going around with a microphone, interviewing people on Sesame Street, asking them basically silly versus not silly. What do you think of food as a secret word? He goes to Luis and Maria. Rightfully so. You hear Oscar from off screen yell, "Don't you people have better things to do?"
Who's that? Who's the kind of like old man who's like carries himself like a magician or something, kind of. Do you know
I
what
think
I'm
you're talking about Uncle Willie.
Okay, let's see if that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Uncle Wally.
Yeah,
Willie's
'cause
the hot
Willie's
dog
the hot
vendor.
dog man.
That's
You
Kermit Love.
idiot.
You didn't know?
Uncle Wally. That is who I'm. Bob's uncle.
Bob's your uncle.
He's a traveling salesman. I suppose a traveling salesman and a magician maybe would have similar airs about them. I could see that.
He also served in the Merchant Marines, which I believe in season 17, I saw a thing where he talks about his sailing days, but also notably on his Muppet Wiki Sam, he mentions having a brother named Filbert who was a magician.
Oh, well, there you go.
So he's got magician's brother energy coming off of him.
That's right. Uncle Wally. I guess he's just supposed to be like the boring old man character.
Yeah.
Because Donahue does be like, don't start telling a story. And then he does start telling
Yeah, maybe he's got like a Grandpa Simpson vibe to him where he just is like, Uncle Wally. In truth, he's probably got some war stories that maybe aren't Sesame Street appropriate. Well, that Phil Donahue segment ends because Big Bird starts yelling food once again, so everyone runs back to check and see Snuffy. At this point, though, the adults show up, and all they see is Zoe, a little human girl, with a blanket over her because this was a drill. Elmo and Big Bird got together and thought that they should practice to make sure the plan worked. So they just threw a Snuffy fur-looking blanket over this little girl and said, haha, we got him.
The plan had already actually worked.
It had.
Before,
I don't think you needed a fire drill for this. You already did that 5 minutes ago.
What happens when you get the brain trust going of those two? I really expected Zoe to pop up. Zoe, you know? Sesame Street Zoe.
Yeah.
I wasn't even like, I couldn't even comprehend that little girl's head popping out. I thought she was like standing in the foreground or something. And then I was like, oh, it's a child named Zoe.
Well, and she's so not involved in the plot that I'm sure she was around more and maybe like Zoe was talked about more often as a little girl on the street. Right. But at this point, we don't know Zoe. So the only Zoe we know is a puppet that'll premiere, like 7-8 years later.
Yeah, that's right.
Which Zoe's one of those Muppets who somehow, even though, I would have only been 6 or something like that when Zoe debuted, still feels like a new Muppet to me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you have that with like either, there's like some movies and like albums from bands I like that to me, the new album, because I remember it coming out in high school. I'm like, oh yeah, they're the newest album by that band. And I look it up and it's 20 years old. Or there's been 8 albums since that album. And I'm like, oh, no one else thinks of that album as the new album other than me.
let's see. The one that pops into my head is "Get Behind Me, Satan" as the White Stripes album. That's their new album. That came out in 2005. So, yep. I, yeah. I think that was maybe also their last album. So that could be. So it is always their new album.
Right.
But
That's
yeah.
better than I have some with bands where these are bands that are still going. And looking up Sam, that was definitely not their last album. They had Icky Thump after that.
Oh, Icky Thump. I forgot about Icky Thump.
It's too new. 2007's too new for you,
I
Sam.
can't keep up with you kids.
Well, we cut away from the adults being annoyed once again that they were fooled by Elmo and Big Bird. Then we get a Sesame Street news flash with Kermit. This one is also from season 16. This is the Three Little Pigs. The straw pig is extremely angry and yells at Kermit for asking him dumb questions like what's it like to not have a house. The stick house pig is extremely sad and insulted that Kermit would ask him about it. And then we get to meet a fantastic brick house pig,
Yuppie
performed
pig.
by Richard Hunt, who is so proud and snobby.
I loved him. So addressing his unseen wife, Muffin.
Yes.
He's got a pool, I believe.
He invites all the other pigs in to join him and Muffin for some lemonade by the pool.
Yeah. He says, don't fall in the conversation pit.
Yeah.
I love this guy. There's also a really great moment at the end where the big bad wolf comes out and he blows Kermit away.
Yeah.
And then he inhales and sucks Kermit back towards him. And Kermit's like, all right, see you later. Then he blows him away again, which is just like such a great little moment of like something they maybe figured out like on the day. I don't know. It just felt like such an great moment.
It's like when the Muppet slips on a banana peel or Muppet's ice skating
or they're
whatever
roller
like that.
skating around.
Yeah. Where it's just like so smooth and seamless that you don't even think about the fact of what's actually happening.
And exhaling Kermit. Yeah.
Right.
That was good. I don't know if we've ever seen that before, but I really
don't think so.
That one.
Doesn't seem familiar. I know we've seen the old lady in the shoe one with a Sesame Street.
That one's really old, I think, right?
I don't remember, Sam.
It feels like we didn't see Frank there was no new Frank material in this batch of stuff that we watched, was there? At least not that we saw.
Maybe not. But then we get to see the Count singing the Batty Bat, which is actually from this episode. That is a new one for the season. Count songs are, I think, untouchable perfection. Almost every single one of them. It just feels, weirdly to me, they almost feel like Emmett Otter songs where they feel like they've existed forever.
Sure. And according to him, this one is from his childhood in the Carpathian Mountains. And it does feel that way. They do a good job of capturing that, like, the just old style dance music. What are we learning in this song, though?
Great question. Bats are cool.
I guess so.
There's definitely multiple segments in these episodes we watched that I was like, what the hell are we trying to teach kids? The last thing that we watched in the greatest hits compilation is the Here Is Your Life for a House sketch. And it's just a Here Is Your Life about a house. And normally in the Here Is Your Life, we're teaching kids about, how furniture is made, how bread is made, where it comes from.
Yeah.
This is just talking about a house.
Yeah, we see the architect and the bricklayers, but they don't actually really go into anything useful about what they did to build the house.
No, they just wanted to throw in the joke of the architect being Frank Lloyd Left.
Yeah.
But yeah, they like just bring in a bunch of characters in that one of like, here's the kids who used to live in your house.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm all for Guy Smiley. Bring me all the Guy Smiley you can, but this was nothing. I think we
got a couple Guy Smileys this time, which kind of surprised me. I thought he was gone by this point.
I wonder if Jim was able to come in and record some stuff, but Frank wasn't, which is maybe why we don't see a bunch of Jim's, or why we maybe don't see a bunch of Frank stuff, but we see a bunch of Kermit, we see a bunch of Guy Smiley.
I like that, guys. There's also another one where he's doing the letter of the day pageant with all the vowels. Yeah. And at the end, he sings a song, and his singing voice is Link Hogthrop's voice. I liked that.
Very much so. Yeah. Guy, if you wonder what Guy Smiley sounds like singing, it's what Link Hogthrop would sound like singing.
Yeah.
There's a weird little film segment in this episode about washing elephants at the Bronx Zoo, which is from season 14. They're playing Splish Splash. I was taking a bath. And, overall, it's just kind of cute watching elephants get a bath. What stood out to me, though, is they talk about washing the elephants every day.
Is that what they said? Because I was sitting there and I was like, I'm not going to rewind this because I don't feel like it. But did they say they wash those elephants every goddamn day?
They say every single day.
That seems not good for the elephants to me.
That's what I'm thinking. Elephants in the wild ain't getting baths.
They need to take baths with soap every day. And it must take so long. You must just have somebody whose job it is to. They have a lot of. There was
Like
a
you're
number of
always washing
elephants.
another elephant, having to move from one elephant to the
You
next.
just can never stop. Okay, I'm glad that I was like they couldn't have. They probably wash these elephants once a year, if anything. But no, every day. How dirty could an elephant at the zoo get in one day? Maybe you just squirt their butt off a little bit, you know? That should be enough. Get an
Well,
elephant bidet installed.
Well, our next Muppet segment is the two-headed monster finding a pencil with a broken point after a disappointed child just breaks his pencil and walks away. This kid's clearly performed by Kevin Clash because he sounds exactly like Baby Sinclair from Dinosaurs.
He does, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of Kevin Clash popping up in these.
Mhm.
There's like a new lady voice that's not a lady, and that is Kevin
Right.
Clash. Yeah.
But sounds just a little Elmo, a little Baby Sinclair. Like,
yeah.
so the two-headed monster used the broken pencil pieces for drumming, has a magic wand, which makes real flowers appear and disappear,
Yeah.
and as a
Teaching
conducting
you-
one.
The kid's like, what can you do with this? Teaching you can make stuff with trash, I guess. I don't know. That was a nice one. No, that's the least annoying two-headed monster skit I've seen, I feel like.
Well, it's nice because when the kid comes back at the end, he finishes his letter, and it turns out he's thanking his aunt for buying him a pencil sharpener.
Yeah. And also the two-headed monster laugh at him for using the pencil like a pencil on their way out.
That checks out
Yeah.
for me. Well, the time has come for the adults to meet Snuffy. Big Bird and Elmo go over the plan again. Elmo has to hold Snuffy's snuffle so he won't leave. And Elmo's like, I gotcha. Go, Big Bird. Go, Big Bird. Go. Big Bird desperately yells food. And Elmo turns out to be extremely competent in this moment.
He does a really good job.
And he's like yelling at Snuffy, like, no, you are staying here. Because at this
He
point, this
knows
is
the
when
score.
Snuffy wants to go brush his teeth.
Uh-huh.
But Elmo does a great job, even when Snuffy Larry David's Elmo and throws him around.
Yeah, you made such a great gif of that for social media.
I was watching this episode and I was just like, wow, violence towards Elmo, not necessarily a brand new thing.
Yeah, that's what was so funny to me about him being annoying to Luis is like, you don't think that they don't know that he's annoying is part of this whole thing. It's like, whatever. I don't want to get into it again, but that's kind of that's part of what Elmo is. He's annoying. You can't be mad get mad at water for being wet, bro.
I wonder if there's a pivot if Elmo's annoying up until 95, 96.
Yeah.
And then after Elmo becomes the most popular Muppet, the show is like, hey, yeah, we all have to respect Elmo now.
Yeah, we can't be scared of him. We can't yell at him no more. He's our boss.
Yeah. The kids are going to get really mad if Elmo's not on screen for 90% of the episode.
Yeah.
Well, the adults are hesitant. They're afraid again that Big Bird is lying, but this time they decide they're going to go in. And they go in. Presumably they are meeting Snuffy, but we get a sweet little moment with Big Bird first. Because he's very afraid to go in and actually experience this.
One of those moments that toes the line between like he's a child who's been around for 20 years.
Yeah, between Carol Spinney and Big Bird.
Yeah,
which one is talking right now? Because there's it goes back and forth for a little longer than maybe it needs to. Of Big Bird being like, I can't, I should, I must, I can't. Oh no, but it ends with him saying, "Gee, I wonder why I kind of get the feeling I'm losing an old friend."
That's a weird thing to say, kind of, isn't it?
Yeah, but
I wonder what that means.
I mean, I read it as there's something special about having this friendship that no one else is allowed into.
Yeah.
And
he is share him now.
Right. He is aware that he from now on is going to have to share Snuffy with the other people on Sesame Street.
Right.
And he is now not just Big Bird's friend.
It's also wild because he does go back and everybody is just like literally agog at Snuffy.
Yeah.
And it's also weird that there's some of those characters like Maria's been on that show forever and has never actually talked to Snuffy on camera, at least. I'm sure has talked to Snuffy, maybe not on camera. I don't know.
I don't think there's a rule that like Martin P. Robinson can't talk to
but just the character,
Sonia Manzano.
like the character, they have never had a scene together and she's been on the show with him forever on set with him as he is standing behind a fence and from her perspective or whatever.
Yeah, and I think the show treats it as a big moment, like they should. I think Maria is the only character who doesn't look surprised, which is an interesting direction.
Very in character, yeah.
Yeah, like she's kind of stunned, but everyone else is like literally jaw on the floor, and she's just kind of staring at him like, I knew it. And this is, again, we've talked about this in the past. The reason this happened is partially, at least, because people were afraid of kids not being believed when telling their parents or other adults about abuse happening to them.
Right.
And so some people stepped in and were like, hey, this is becoming a thing where it seems like the adults won't believe Big Bird when he's telling them something that all the kids know to be true who are watching this show.
Mm-hmm.
So they, I think, handle it incredibly well. We see Susan say to Big Bird, you have a right to be angry because we didn't believe you after all this time. And she apologizes to Big Bird.
Yeah. And it's I think it was a good move on their part to make Big Bird and Snuffy decide that like they actually are annoyed. Like this isn't an entirely nice
Yeah.
moment for everybody because Snuffy and Big Bird are just like, we fucking told you so many times.
Yeah, Bob promises Big Bird that he's going to believe him in the future whenever he tells him something. And Snuffy leans over and is like, maybe we should get that in writing.
Yeah. It's nice that they have a little moment that they can be like, well, fuck you guys too.
But then Big Bird starts to very sweetly introduce, one by one, everyone on Sesame Street to Snuffy. And before the episode wraps up, we do see Ernie singing the Dance Myself to Sleep song, which is from season 13 to Bert. I think the best highlight of this for me is not only is it a pretty good song, but also at the very beginning when Ernie starts singing, Bert looks at the camera and goes, not again.
Yeah, I love it so much that Bert is just so, because a lot of Ernie songs are very they're just like sweet.
Yeah.
But I love that Ernie's in the background of this one having his life ruined by this also very sweet song. And he's like playing the bugle. And the sheep dance him out of the room on his bed.
Yeah.
It's just really funny.
They just carry Bert out.
Yeah.
And Bert's trying to yell. He's like, Ernie, your sheep.
Oh no, yeah.
But the episode wraps up as everyone finishes meeting Snuffleupagus. And Elmo encourages a big group hug, which of course he cannot really participate in because he can't get out of the nest that he is hanging out in. And even Phil Donahue comes in to meet and hug Snuffy.
No, why are you here?
And as the episode wraps up, Oscar is the one reading out the sponsors this week and lovingly says, this revolting spectacle was brought to you by the letter J. I love the idea that a kid would take away only the Oscar part of Sesame Street into his daily life and just see like his parents kissing and being like, what is this revolting spectacle? Where'd you learn that? Sesame Street. What are you talking about?
There's Grouch children as well. They need a role model.
But that does it for that season premiere episode of Sesame Street. All around, again, very big moment in the world of Sesame Street. And I'm glad we're finally past the annoying scenes of Snuffy just walking out of frame as Bob runs in and then scolds Big Bird. And
it's like a not really appreciated part of Sesame Street that it's like been a kind of semi-serialized story for decades and decades.
Well, yeah, because I feel like there's so often things where they drop character traits, they bring on new character traits whenever something is sort of needed. So to have something that has run for so long finally be resolved, it is, it's quite the payoff.
Not that any of the children who lived who were around originally are still children, so it doesn't really help them, but helps somebody.
Some guy who's graduating high school is just hearing about this on the news of like, oh, Snuffy is real. Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, then getting into some of the other things we watched this week. Again, we watched some street scenes from episode 2134 so we could meet Placido Flamingo. We watched 2162 street scenes so that we could meet Leo the Party Monster. We watched a couple clips of Dexter, the juggling
from different
beast.
Episodes.
Yeah.
He came back.
Yeah, he was around a few times. Placido shows up when Telly's hanging out with all the kids and they suddenly hear someone singing. And that's when we meet Placido Flamingo from Santo Domingo. He is the thing that is making the noise they heard. And he's teaching Telly and the kids to sing like him. When they end up doing the Flamingo opera, one, Bob's wearing his like bullfighter suit
yeah,
with a flamingo costume.
His Toreador outfit.
Yeah. But then Telly has like feathers on his head and a flamingo nose, which struck me as interesting because the kids and Bob all look like, yeah, they just got some props on their heads. Telly, like that could just be a new Muppet. Like they're repurposing an old puppet, adding on a flamingo nose and some
Making it
feathers, and
look
like,
scary.
hey, this is Smelly. This is Telly's cousin.
He's a bird or something. I don't know. This show's been on for 100 years. What do you want from us? Yeah, he did. He misunderstood. He misunderstood what he was supposed to do. He took flamingo costume too literally. But this was such a funny. This is another thing where it's like, is this why are we making this reference? This one is a little
Yeah.
bit more like talking to Richard Termine. It makes a lot more sense that probably Richard Hunt was like, let's do an opera thing, and then this became that. And then that in that context, it's actually really sweet that he was like, I want to teach kids about opera. And I'm happy that he got to do that. I think it would have been fun if they had gone to the opera or something and maybe met an opera singer in that moment.
Right.
But also that was kind of like not really fair that he didn't get all the street scenes. Like it's that much harder to write a couple other things for him to do.
Yeah, that was actually that was surprising because we had this like 10, 12-minute clip of the street scenes, and it's about halfway through and they're performing the opera, and I'm like, that's odd. I assume that would be the end of the episode. But no, we have Nobel Price scamming David out of ice cream at Hooper's store.
Yeah. It seemed like a missed opportunity to do a little bit of like cultural enrichment, you know?
Which I think is the way Placido is used later on, is to teach
Yeah.
kids more about classical music.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wonder if part of it is that the kids don't super seem into hanging out with Placido.
Right. And
He's
I
trying to
don't
teach
really
Telly and the
blame
kids how
them.
to sing, and they're like, they don't get the assignment here. Like
Where's
Telly's doing a great
Grover?
job of
That's what
singing
they're
the
saying.
notes and the
Yeah.
things that Placido is telling him, but the kids don't seem to know their assignment here of like, oh no, this is when you sing.
Right. Opera is just like one step too difficult maybe for like a concept for, but as like growing up, I think opera is also one of those things that requires a little bit of like explanation and contextualization. Like opera and ballet are both just like things that you have to learn how to enjoy. And I feel like that would, and you're right, he probably does do that, but like that would be a useful language to learn for some children, I guess, who lived in New York or something.
But then, Sam, we get to meet two new chaotic Muppets. First up, we have Leo the Party Monster, who interrupts as Maria and Luis are fixing Gordon's turntable. And this is, hello, drunk Junior Gorg. If you've ever wondered what a drunk Junior Gorg would be like, it's Leo the Party Monster.
He sounds exactly like Junior Gorg, which is fine,
Yeah, like if Junior Gorg was fun and got to like actually have friends and leave the house every so often, he would turn into Leo the Party Monster.
He would be this way. Yeah, and like I said at first, Leo was like, God, what are you guys doing? Why you got Leo the Party Monster? But really, there's something infectious about him, to me at least.
Yeah, I think ultimately Leo did grow on me, but I think he is officially too chaotic for Sesame Street.
And there is what lesson could you apply to Leo the Party Monster? None.
I guess how to responsibly party?
Leo
the Party Monster, drink responsibly.
Yeah. Leo needs his own show for like 15-year-olds instead. But yes, this balding man with a boombox playing disco music. I guess it's I don't know, it's important to have fun, but that whole Sesame Street's all about learning and having fun at the same time.
Yeah.
So yes, I can see why he didn't make it. But I really liked at the end when they were like, oh, I kind of wish we could have gone to that party. Maybe there's like a don't be judgmental of weirdos.
Yeah, sometimes they're the coolest people. He has a delightful song that he just keeps singing. He's like, party, we've got to party. I want to note, this was released 9 months before You Gotta Fight for Your Right to Party.
That's where they got the idea. We finally know.
I mean, the way he says party is very similar.
Yeah.
So
the Beastie Boys, all three of them sitting in front of the tube TV.
Finally, a Muppet we can relate to.
in their pajamas, yeah, eating cereal. That guy's right.
We do have to party more. But yeah, I love when he's singing and dancing around Luis and Maria, because at one point, just later on, you see what happens. But earlier, he's singing and dancing. It cuts to Luis and Maria, and just random confetti gets thrown into their faces.
Yeah.
And you have no idea where this confetti came from,
Uh-huh.
why it's there, but random confetti just shows up.
Yeah.
Later on, you get to see that he throws it.
Yeah. He's got pockets full of confetti.
Yeah, but they didn't have that in the shot in the earlier segment.
I do love if he was still around today, I feel like wherever Leo went, there would be just the natural atmosphere would change to party, and confetti would start raining down. Like as he got more excited, it would just the background would dark, disco ball. Confetti
He walks
starts,
in
balloons.
to the bowling alley and it changes to cosmic bowling.
Exactly. Yeah. And it is kind of like a Cookie Monster thing. It's like, you can't get too excited or you're going to start smashing stuff up, kids. And that's kind of what Leo is like. You can't always go crazy. But
I think it's more threatening because he feels more real.
Yeah, and old and like a guy, just like a guy.
Right. Like Cookie Monster hearing the word cookie and then wanting to eat a table isn't something that's going to happen in your day-to-day life.
Right.
Having a friend who you suggest partying
problematically into partying.
Yeah, and it's like, party? Let's frickin' go. It's party time. You're like, oh, God damn it. We did it again.
Maybe like, kids, you're going to meet people like Leo, and you got to know. You got to know how to shut them down.
You got to know how to deal with Leos in your life.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the moment when he's talking about partying and a random band just shows up in Luis's Fix-It shop, that's the moment I decided he is too chaotic for Sesame Street, because none of this even makes sense within the context of Leo. But it's,
he's got too many magical properties compared to other Muppets.
Yeah, like I can't imagine, like they're having like a serious conversation with Big Bird about death or something, and Leo's like, hey, you guys need someone to help out?
Yeah.
I'm here to cheer Big Bird up.
You know, what is a wake if not a kind of a party?
Well, speaking of impending doom, Dexter is here.
Yeah.
We meet Dexter, and he's just the tallest, weirdest looking Muppet we've seen in a while.
Yeah. I feel like it's hacky to be like, oh, he's so scary, he'll kill you, for like a cute guy. There's something about him that reminded me of It from the new It,
Oh.
There's just something about his proportions that is very like,
his
if you saw him
weird.
standing down the end of an alley, you'd be like, I have to run immediately.
Because he's got the proportions essentially of a Big Bird, of a Magellan the Dragon, of a LaChoy dragon. But the problem is they built like a normal like height human body in a blazer, and then he's got like this weird long turtleneck situation happening. And the reason for that is because there's two men under there.
Yeah.
One has to control the head and the other one has to juggle.
Has to be juggling.
So there's two men cramped inside of this thing, one over the other one's shoulder while they're doing that. And yeah,
and he just looks like a guy who has too many bones, basically, is the end result of that.
Yeah, he's also immediately introduced by Susan as, oh, you're the one who juggles all the time, which he adamantly denies, saying that he could stop whenever he wants, which he tries to prove by throwing balls up into the air to get rid of them, but he just can't stop juggling.
His voice also kind of reminds me of Judge Doom when he turns at the end into a tune. Like it's like the transition somewhere in between regular voice and tune voice is where Dexter's voice is living.
Yeah, I could see him dropping a menacing line. Well, and he kind of does drop a menacing line at the very, very end. He teaches Gordon how to juggle, which is a pretty sweet moment. But at the end, when Gordon's like, oh, thanks, and he's like, yeah, now we're even. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, tomorrow you can show me how to drive your car.
And it's like, just you can immediately picture the implications of that guy driving.
And I also picture him having to punch a hole through the roof of the car to fit his head out of it.
The streets of New York. And where does this guy need to drive to?
Yeah. Where hasn't he been able to go that he wants to go?
Yeah.
I'm going to need a list before I allow him to drive.
I got to get across state lines, but quick.
Teach me how to drive your car. Show me where's the registration and insurance information. I'll be right back. I promise. Well, then the last thing we watched this week was the Best of Season 17 compilation. Sam, any big standouts for you in this compilation?
Oh, you know what? So the lifestyles of the big and little,
Hmm.
that is one of the first things that I've seen where I'm like, this is an ancient memory in my head.
Ooh, interesting.
And I cannot figure out why I would have seen that in a way that made such an impression on me. But immediately when the little dot got out and started like walking around her house, I was like, "Bam, bam, bam, this is from my childhood." And
Hmm.
then the big man like brushing his teeth. And I thought that was just like a pretty fun skit. I don't know. The one that made the biggest impression was Miami Mice because it just was infinite and not very good.
Yeah, that's one where Ernie shows up to ask the Miami Mice police to help him because he's here to report he can't get his rubber ducky back from the repair shop because there's
Mhm.
no one there.
Mhm.
And they go there, and there's a big sign on the door that says Cerrado. But Ernie thinks it's the Corrado Repair Shop.
It is like that is how Jim probably pronounces Spanish words.
My favorite thing is that the one cop is like, "Oh, that's not Corrado, that's Cerrado." And Ernie goes, "Cerrado." Like,
Yeah.
doesn't even attempt to roll an R.
Tortilla. I'll have the quesadillas, please. That's how Jim is at a Mexican restaurant. But yeah, so in theory, nice. I mean, I could see them being characters who teach Spanish, but
Right.
also it's like that guy's accent was not good and the skit went on forever. But when I wrote this is something I would do was at the end when they're driving away in their car and they both look at the camera and then they like slowly hold up their thumbs up. I was like, yeah, that's how I would probably end the skit too.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in there where I'm like, I'm sure this is referencing the opening credits or whatever of Miami Vice, a show that I have never watched.
Yeah.
So
I've
I'm
seen
going
the
to trust.
movie. You
I've
seen the
never even
movie?
seen that. So,
Good movie. Actually, a really good movie.
but yeah, one of the things that stood out to me in this is the 24-hour emergency counting service
Yeah, I like that.
where the Count's sheep go on strike, essentially. They are
Yeah.
tired of jumping and they all leave as he's counting them
Uh-huh.
because he just counts too much. And thankfully, the Count says, "Wait, not to panic," and looks up a 24-hour emergency counting service that delivers in the phone book.
Yeah.
And he yells, "This is the Count. I need something to count in a hurry." And they're there immediately. And the guy tries to help him out. This is a great character. He's not like anybody that we've seen or met before. He's the same like fat blue pattern that they use.
Yeah.
But he's trying. He's trying. He brings some Swiss cheese, and the Count's like, "Not enough holes."
Easy.
So what he wants is more sheep. And so the guy comes back dressed very poorly as a
The
sheep.
guy's like, oh, they always just want the sheep.
And so he has to run and jump repeatedly over the Count's bed, flinging himself.
Hucking this puppet over the Count's bed. At first, I thought it was a guy, like a real guy jumping, because the way they stuffed him is like really, really convincing.
There's some natural movement to that body that's like,
Yeah.
but yeah, the Count is like, "One pretend sheep, two pretend sheep."
That one was really, really good. You saying that does make me think that could have been Grover, and that also would have been really funny.
Oh,
I
Grover
feel
would
like
have been great at that role.
Grover would have been a good emergency counting guy who was mad at the Count.
Could be just a service he offers.
And I'd love to see Grover get thrown over the bed that many times, but
Yeah, and just a good Frank Grover yell every
Yeah.
time he gets thrown over the bed.
Yeah.
I do want to say about Ernie specifically in this batch of things we watched.
Yeah.
Ernie might be the greatest example of weaponized incompetence
Oh, wow. Okay.
because we learn in here that he is a secretly mentally healthy, responsible adult.
Oh, yeah. 'cause
And
he
he's
waters his
only
plants.
annoying and irresponsible when it annoys Bert and makes his life worse. We see two back-to-back numbers in here. We see Imagine That, which is Ernie
Yeah.
singing a song about imagining he's a knight in shining armor and he's an explorer crossing the sea. But it ends with Ernie just going, "You know what? I just want to be Ernie. I'm happy being me." And I'm like, this
Very
is the most
emotionally intelligent.
mentally healthy Muppet we know.
He really is. He's like Kermit the Frog level, just like in touch with himself.
Yeah, and that's a song by Jeff Moss, who also wrote "People in Your Neighborhood," "I Love Trash," and "Rubber Ducky," and also did the songs for Muppets Take Manhattan. So
Yeah.
batting 1,000 there, Jeff.
Really nice segment with great setting and I like scenes and yeah, I like that.
And a nice moment for Jim, I feel like, to really show off the pipes.
Yeah, I love when Jim gets to sing a nice Ernie. And like Ernie singing the Moon song is another one where he's like totally like emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
A human, like an actual human being, even more so than Bert probably. Bert's got
Right.
all his hang-ups.
Well, and the next one after that is Ernie singing a lovely little song about taking care of his plant, who silently thanks him with a little ding of a bell.
Yeah.
And it's
Something
so
only an adult can do. Take
it's
care of a plant.
it's so sincere and
Yeah.
just cute. And I was really like, oh, when Bert's not around, Ernie is
That's
a
a great
great
point.
human.
I mean, Ernie knows how to fly a plane so well, he can fly it upside down. So he really
Right.
is
But why does he
extremely
fly it upside
competent
down?
just to make Bert mad.
Correct.
Wow. So kind of in a way, Bert is really the one with the problem.
I think Bert has real problems, and Ernie pretends to have more problems than he actually has.
You're right. That
But,
does
like,
make him so much more sinister, doesn't
how
it?
many of Bert's problems are exacerbated by Ernie pretending to be bad or annoying at things that he is not actually bad at?
He's just like trying to. He's like a guardian angel or something. He's trying to teach
He's
Ernie,
testing Bert.
or he's trying to teach Bert how to loosen up, but it's just not working, and it never will.
Yeah, we also have the Caribbean amphibian song, which is Kermit in a fantastic costume, mostly just teaching us about amphibians.
I guess in a way, except he talks about how they are swimming across the ocean, and I don't think that they can go in salt water.
Yeah, and I also, I again don't know as much about amphibians as many people, but I feel like they have to be on land somewhat regularly,
I think you're right.
and
Well,
so
no, my friends have a fish tank with frogs that live underwater permanently, and I
all right,
believe I think axolotls are only underwater guys too.
but that counts.
As amphibian?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what
Oh.
else they'd be. A damn
But you're right,
fish or
Sam.
something.
I did Google. Amphibians are the only class of vertebrate animals in which there are no saltwater species. So the
So
ocean would be a problem.
yeah, his cousin he's singing about is dead. And this does feel like the ultimate version of the song is yet to come when Mr. Jimmy Buffett steps up to take a crack at it.
Yeah, a song with the Muppets that has a surprising longevity that I would
Uh-huh.
not have guessed having just seen this clip.
Yeah.
Well, the only other clip that I want to make sure we bring up before we get out of here is we see Leo once
Oh
again.
yeah, on Party
He's
Line.
running the party line, which seems to be either like a radio or a TV show of some sort.
I remember when I was a kid, there was a show, I think it was local, called Party Line, where people would
Oh.
call in and do the same thing. So maybe it's like a franchised idea for a
Maybe.
show or something.
It seems to be just people calling to talk to Leo about partying.
Right. And a party line was when you could have multiple people on a phone call back
Mm.
when phones were hooked to your wall, and you had to dial a special number, and then you could have multiple people talking at the same
It
time.
is notable that Leo is outside of a rack of payphones for this,
On
just
a
getting calls on all
payphone.
the different payphones.
Yeah. That is, I
Um,
never really thought about why didn't they just put him at a radio station or something. But
But he's
it makes it more in character that he's just standing on the street.
yeah, no
taking
one's even
random
recording this. Like where is this being broadcast?
Yeah.
But one caller really wants to party. Another person isn't sure really about partying, and really is kind of almost against partying as a
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah.
But
And
then
that is
Leo,
another one where I was like, why wasn't that Bert? The guy who's like, we should be collecting stamps instead.
oh yeah,
They got to get Frank. Frank needed to have been there for some of these.
Frank would have improved some of these. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then Leo gets invited to a party, throws random confetti, and bails.
There's not much to say about it, but I really loved the Gladys as a cowgirl thing. First of all, because I could see it coming a mile away when the lady was like, cowgirl wanted. And then Gladys walks up, it's like, yeah, obviously. She was a
Like,
cowgirl.
I'm a cowgirl. It's like,
Yeah.
you're a girl cow.
Yeah. I just really liked the end where she was like, that's simply too much work for me. I have to go now. It's
Yeah,
like,
the whole point is that she's like, I'd love to work at your ranch. And the rancher, she's like, here's all the things you got to do and wake up early and take care of
Yeah.
this. And Gladys is like, I'll be going.
Yeah, from the very start when she's like, wake up at dawn, Gladys is like, oh, already I know this is not going to work for
I've
me.
made a horrible mistake.
Yeah.
But that does it for our Sesame Street watching this week. Checking in on season 17. But Sam, guess what? I've got
What?
a little lightning round Muppet of the Week. So this week's Muppets of the Week are Leo the Party Monster, Placido Flamingo, and Dexter. No last name given.
And that's on purpose, so you can't trace him.
Yeah, you can't find Dexter even if you try. I will say, apparently in Kevin Clash's book, My Life as a Furry Red Monster, he refers to him as Juggles the Juggler. So
He's giving out aliases also.
yeah, even Kevin Clash doesn't know Dexter's real name.
Juggles the Juggler is like a Dick Tracy villain.
That's also
you know?
first draft of
Yeah.
like, we're going to make a Muppet called Juggles. What's he
We'll
do?
fill his-
He's a juggler.
We'll figure out his name later.
Yeah. Dexter. Okay, sure, whatever. So yeah, I just want to touch base on these guys again, just to sort of, let you know what happened to them, how long they were around, if we'll be seeing any of them again. For the most part, the answer is no. But we have Placido Flamingo from Santo Domingo. There's a couple things worth noting here. As we talked about with Richard Termine, Placido will actually duet at some point with the Placido Domingo. And Placido Flamingo is the most successful out of these three characters, showing up the most times. But following Richard Hunt's death in 1992, they retired the character. But they would re-air segments up into 1998, I believe. And he also shows up as a background character, at least in the 1996 Lowe's Theater Policy trailer. There's just like a bunch of Muppets, a bunch of Sesame Street Muppets in the theater being like, shush, quiet, get off your phones.
Okay.
Kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Placido was around from 1986 until 1996 in that Lowe's thing. But Leo and Dexter, they were both destined to stay in 1986. Neither of them will make it out of the year.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Leo's puppet gets reused later on as another character named Ruby, who debuts in season 19. So he's not even around anymore.
He doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. But the performers here, we've got Richard Hunt as Leo the Party Monster, Richard Hunt as Placido Flamingo, and for Dexter, we've got Kevin Clash performing the head and voice, and Fred Garbo performing the hands, doing the juggling. He played Barkley on Sesame Street as well.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
But according to Kevin Clash, Dexter is Sesame's most spectacular failure.
I think that feels about right.
Yeah, I want to read this quote from him saying, I puppeteered the head of the character, and we found a talented artist named Fred Garbo to do the juggling while squatting under the camera's frame. Talk about tough. Trying to coordinate Fred's actions was next to impossible. Fred was the best, but this was asking too much. We spent most of our time in rehearsal rounding up drop balls, stumbling over one another, and flubbing lines of dialogue. Just try concentrating on what you're saying when you've got balls flying around your head.
They could have just had a real guy juggling,
Because they saw an opportunity, Sam, to make a Muppet juggle.
I suppose you're right. Yeah.
And they flew too close to the sun.
Yep.
But that's it for those Muppets. Again, we will see Placido again, I am sure. The other two, this is probably the last time we're ever going to talk about them.
Dexter's wanted in 10 states for various crimes and hasn't been seen since 1986.
So if you see Dexter...
He is at large. Call the police immediately.
Or hit us up.
Do not try to apprehend him yourself.
Oh, no. He's got very dexterous hands. But I guess if you had to rate these Muppets, Sam, what are you going to rate Leo, Placido, and Dexter individually, not as a group?
Do I rate out of 10? I don't remember.
The problem is, Sam, I think so.
Let's say I rate out of 10.
I believe we rate out of 10 now on these, but it's been so long since we rated a Muppet.
I've actually created a whole rich inner vision of Leo the Party Monster for myself at this point. So I'm going to give him 9 stars. I loved him. I loved him in retrospect. And I love the idea of him just doing lines at club, what's it called?
Studio 54?
Studio 54.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. Just telling stories about the old days.
Rich tapestry.
Yeah. Placido Flamingo?
Yep.
I can see him being extremely useful for teaching kids about stuff that kids might find boring. I'll give him a 6.5. I think a character who's based entirely on a pun maybe is not the strongest idea, but I'm sure there's an example of a Muppet who's extremely famous whose name is just based on a pun that I'm not thinking of. Finally, Dexter. Pure evil, creepy, and not worth the trouble. I'm going to give him 1 star. I really didn't like him.
Okay.
How about you?
Yeah, I will go in reverse order here. Dexter, I'm going to give him a 2. I think he's ambitious, but I think he ultimately flopped pretty hard as a character.
Yeah.
I do enjoy the effort and the design, while somewhat terrifying, is interesting. Reminds me a bit of those McDonald's Muppet toys that they
Yeah,
had.
I guess I can see that.
Um,
Hmm.
Placido Flamingo, I think is useful, but useful in almost a Forgetful Jones kind of occasional character. Not going to be a Grover,
Yeah.
a Bert, or an Ernie, or anything kind of like that.
You're not going to buy a Placido Flamingo doll at
Yeah.
Target or something.
But I think, Placido, I'm going to give a 6. I think.
I think that's what I gave him too.
Yeah, I think he deserves a 6.
Consensus.
Maybe he'll, win us over in the future.
Yeah, when he does his duet, if we see that.
Yeah, Leo, totally too chaotic for Sesame Street he's too chaotic to exist. But I will say I did like him quite a bit. If we had to see him more, I would probably rate him lower. But because we've only saw him for this little bit of time, I will give him a solid 8.
Wow, we really liked Leo.
Leo as a concept is great because he almost feels like he's something that wouldn't be an official Muppet. Like I could see him on a parody show,
right?
As like they were making fun of Muppets with Leo the
Yeah.
Party Monster.
Yeah.
And he'd be much nastier.
Like a TV's Funhouse or something where he just he's like the sidekick. Or like that morning show that I've shared with you a couple times from FX where they had like Bob the Puppet, the nasty little puppet.
Right.
Like Leo could be there like throwing confetti on the guests and being like, "Hey man, you want a beer?" Be like, "No, it's 6:00 in the morning."
That's the weird show that was hosted by Tom Bergeron, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the weird one that everyone shares the clip of Elliott Smith when he played on there a super sad, serious song, as is his wont. But the puppet's just like over his shoulder trying to like seriously react to the super sad
The puppet
song.
was a guy. The puppet was great. That show had more influence on me than anything else in my entire life, basically.
Wow, I feel like we're gonna have to watch some of that for this podcast at some point.
That could be a good birthday thing.
I can understand Sam better.
Yeah.
That brings us, Sam, to what non-Muppet stuff did you enjoy this week?
Nothing. I've been working too hard.
Wow.
This is just a hard week, so I didn't
Mr.
really watch
Responsible.
anything. The only thing I watched was the Zone of Interest, and I can't recommend that movie to anybody who doesn't want to watch the saddest movie that they've ever seen. It was great. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Probably like it's nominated for Best Picture, but it's about Auschwitz and the superintendent of Auschwitz basically and his family. And man, the acting's good. The sound design is bonkers good. But yeah, I went to see that and it was great. But be aware of what you're walking into.
Right.
But other than that, I mean, I played some Fortnite because it's the Ninja Turtles crossovers happening.
Ooh,
right
I didn't
now,
realize that was
where-
a thing. Michelangelo
where
get
I
a gun?
They all have guns, which is interesting. My conspiracy theory about Fortnite is that eventually they're going to change all the guns to Nerf guns.
Right, or like paintball or whatever.
Yeah, because I think that they're just like they're going too far, and they just made that big deal with Disney, and I'm pretty sure eventually they're going to roll out an update because they already have censored some of the characters with guns on permanently, like on their skins.
Oh,
so you can set parental settings so that kids can't see a character with a gun on their hip, but they can be shot by
Goofy can shoot him in the face potentially,
like Superman, Goku, Batman, all
Batman,
in the game.
Notoriously not a fan of guns.
Not a gun guy. So yeah, my theory is that sooner than later there will be the Nerf update. They were all fake guns the whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is really weird to see them. Part of the crossovers you can get like super weapons, which are their like bow staff or whatever. But it's very strange just to see them even in the stance of like holding the gun. And yeah, I can't help but always think that the people who made Fortnite are like, I really wish we hadn't made a shooting game to make an infinite amount of money, but we're working with what we got. How about you?
I watched Rodan.
Oh, I've never seen that one.
Oh, it's a fun one. It's the first color Toho kaiju film.
That one's kind of sad, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, yeah. So it's like a lot of them where it's like mostly obviously focused on the humans and their story. And I loved most of it. The ending is a little weak. It's, somewhat spoilers, I guess, for this 100-year-old movie. But like, it's just one of those where they're like, hey, Rodan's in that cave. Let's just bomb him until he's dead. And so like the last 10 minutes of the movie is just over and over, while they explode a mountain, and they're like, "We did it!"
Right. And
Which
there's
is
2 Rodans, and that's the sad part that I've always heard about is just like that one dies and the other one gets really sad.
well, but the second Rodan is just introduced to raise the stakes and doesn't matter at all to the
Okay.
story.
Okay.
It's like the last 20 minutes of the movie. They're just like, "There's another one," and it's like
Okay.
doesn't matter at all.
I always pictured it as being a beautiful love story
Nope.
about 2 pterodactyls. It's not though.
Nope.
That's
One
too
just
bad.
shows up randomly, and they're like, "Oh, there's another one. That sucks."
Well, maybe we'll write Rodan -1 where they make out and stuff.
It's just an hour long. The 2 Rodans making
Sex
out.
scene. Yeah. And then they
But
get
no,
blown
I think
up.
it is really good. It's not quite it's so far out of the 3 Toho films I've watched, I would rank it second behind the original Godzilla and better than
Right.
Godzilla Raids Again.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, just we finished watching the Lord of the Rings series. We finished
Mm.
Return of the King last night.
How'd it go over?
Well, I think we both decided after, like, I had not seen these movies in forever, and Devin first time. We both love Fellowship of the Ring a lot. It's a great,
Mhm.
great movie, and the other ones are not as good.
It's hard to think of them as not just one continuous movie to me, but yeah, I guess I could see.
Well, I
The
think
Battle of Helm's Deep is just so good, though.
I think we both were like, we would rewatch Fellowship of the Ring and maybe even check out the extended version, but like neither of us would have a desire to revisit the other 2, I don't think. But that's it for this week. Next time, we're going to be watching more Muppet Babies.
Man, I was really hoping you wouldn't say that.
I know. I could see the look in your face anticipating what I was going to say.
When do we get to watch Fraggle Rock again?
Pretty soon.
Okay.
April.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
But for now, next time we are delving back into November of 1985 as we finish season 2 of Muppet Babies with the last 4 episodes of the season.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Okay.
And these are the episodes titled The Great Muppet Cartoon Show, The Muppet Museum of Art, Buy the Book, and When You Wish Upon a Muppet. But that'll be next time, and we'll post on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, the links to where you can watch that stuff. We are also on Threads and Blue Sky and Instagram and all those other places. So if you're on those, follow us. I'm not sure entirely where the audience wants us to be, on Threads or Blue Sky.
I don't think anybody knows anything.
No. But we're there. You can find us. But we need to thank our friend Tuna for making the music for this podcast and Cassie Wilson for singing our theme song. Don't forget to go to Kermitment.com to find all your Kermitment needs, be it episodes, morpits, or merch. You can email us at mail@Kermitment.com or reach us through the website. And like I said, you can find us on social media at KermitmentPod, where you can find me at Matthew Gatos.
And I'm Sam Schultz.
And as always, keep believing.
Keep pretending.